Welcome, dear listeners, to a tale that begins where the ice never melts and the air is heavy with secrets. Imagine standing amidst the vast, frozen expanse of Alaska's glaciers, surrounded by towering mountains and an eerie stillness. It's here, in this desolate yet breathtaking landscape, that our story unfolds. A story of mystery, discovery, and the unexpected. What lies ahead is not just a journey through ice and snow, but one that delves into the thin line between reality and imagination. So settle in, let your curiosity guide you, and prepare to uncover what awaits in the heart of the frozen wilderness. Mark had been taking a new route in the glaciers and mountains of Alaska. It was somewhere he had never gone before, but he heard from a friend who had gone a few years prior how beautiful it was. However, while walking, he saw something strange frozen in the ice. The boat was a certain sight to behold, but as he boarded it, he couldn't believe what he saw. As he entered the helm, he couldn't contain himself and screamed at the sight. Mark couldn't contain himself when he was walking the unfamiliar path, so he had decided to take a holiday to Alaska this year on the recommendation of one of his friends. Though he had gone years ago, his friend told him he needed to venture this off the beaten path route, and Mark had agreed. He had no idea that he would find something like this. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. He hadn't heard many people talking about this route, but trusted his friend. They had instructed him how to walk to arrive at a beautiful spot on the glaciers where no one would often be around. This idea appealed to Mark, who loved to uncover unknown places. However, he wondered if Tyler had seen this and forgotten to mention it to him. His friend had recommended it. As Mark arrived at his destination, he saw something that he would never have expected from a place like this. He expected a beautiful, vast white landscape with rugged mountains in the distance. Though that was partially what he saw, it only confused him more about the fact that something bright yellow was in the middle of the landscape. Okay, instead of getting a text message as a response, he suddenly saw Tyler's caller ID with furrowed brows. He answered the phone. "Yo, Tyler, what's up?" Mark asked. "Mark, what the is that boat on the glacier? Did you Photoshop that in your picture or something?" Tyler asked. This confused Mark even more. Had Tyler truly not been joking? "What do you mean? I thought you sent me here to with me. Are you saying that you didn't see this when you were here last year?" Mark suddenly felt anxious for Tyler's answer. If this hadn't been here last year, how did it suddenly appear out of nowhere? "Nah, man, that certainly wasn't there when I went there last year. Can you FaceTime me? I really want to believe you, but this all seems so improbable that I must see it with my own two eyes," Tyler said. Mark nodded, forgetting that Tyler couldn't see the nod. Mark smiled at his friend's words. "You're here in spirit. If my phone reception allows it, I will keep FaceTiming when I enter that way. If only partially, you are still there with me." He saw Tyler nod at this. Mark could feel that he suddenly felt less nervous since it away could bring someone with him. Mark made his way over and started to understand the sheer size of the thing. When he came face to face with it, how was he even supposed to enter it? "Maybe you have to walk around it to find a way to get on," and Tyler asked as he was still on the call. Mark nodded at this. Getting on the boat would be a top priority if they wanted to explore its contents. "Yeah, you're right. Let's do that." Mark carefully boarded the deck. He was careful about where to step, looking around on the deck. It looked rather empty. "We should go inside," Tyler said, but that would prove to be a big mistake. Mark located the door that went into the helm, but as went M, he slowly walked toward it, documenting everything he saw to his friend. As Mark opened the door and shone his flashlight inside, the air became stuck in his throat. Mark stepped inside the dimly lit cabin of the boat, his breathspray visible in the icy air. Suddenly one of the figures seemed to shift slightly, and that was all it took. Mark's fear erupted into a primal scream, piercing the icy stillness of the glacier. And the device slipped from his grasp, clattering to the wooden floor. the screen going dark as the call with Tyler was abruptly severed. The silence that followed was deafening. The icy walls of the boat seemed to close in around him, and the darkness felt suffocating. He forced himself to take a step, then another, his movement shaky and uncertain. Mark's feet slipped and slid on the icy surface as he hurried away from the ship. His gaze kept flicking back over his shoulder, half expecting to see something emerging from the vessel. The yellow hull of the boat stood stark against the white expanse, a surreal anomaly in the frozen landscape. He quickened his pace, eager to put as much distance as possible between himself and the IE ship. Like as Mark moved further away from the ship, the journey back to safety felt interminable. Doubt crept into Mark's thoughts with every step he took. Had he really seen what he thought he had seen? Was his mind playing tricks on him in this desolate place? Gradually, as the ship disappeared from view, Mark began to feel a sense of relief. The further he got, the less oppressive the air felt, as if he were leaving a heavy weight behind him. Once Mark felt a safe distance from the ship, he pulled out his phone. Hands still trembling from the cold and fear, he dialed the local authorities, his voice shaky as he tried to explain what he had found. "There's a boat in the ice. It's not just a boat. There's something wrong with it," he stammered. The words felt inadequate, unable to capture the sheer terror of what he had seen. The dispatcher on the other end of the line sounded distant and unconvinced. Mark tried to paint a picture of the scene, his words stumbling over each other. Inside the boat, there were figures arranged in a circle. It felt wrong, terrifying. He explained, his voice laced with urgency. He could sense the skepticism from the dispatcher, but he pressed on desperate to convey the seriousness of the situation. The disbelief in the dispatcher's tone only added to the surreal feeling of the entire ordeal. The dispatcher's voice, when it finally came, was tinged with doubt. "Are you sure about what you saw, sir?" they asked. "Yes, I'm sure. Please, you have to send someone. It's not righty," insisted his PLE, underscored by a sense of urgency. Finally, the dispatcher agreed to send a unit to investigate, though the skepticism remained in Mark. Ended the call and found a sheltered spot to wait, his body shivering from both the cold and the aftermath of adrenaline. When the police finally arrived, their expressions were a mix of curiosity and skepticism as they made their way towards the boat. Mark's emotions were a tumultuous sea of relief and apprehension. He was glad not to be alone anymore, yet the anxiety of what the police might find or not find knotted him as they approached the location of the boat. Mark clung to a fragile hope. He hoped the police would see what he saw, that they would understand and validate his experience. Standing at the edge of the clearing where the boat lay in wait, Mark took a deep breath, bracing himself for what was to come. With a nod to the officers, he led the way, the boat looming ahead like a specter from a forgotten tale. As they reached the site, the police officer's expression shifted from skepticism to a more measured curiosity. The sight of the massive yellow ship stark against the wide expanse of the glacier, he took them by surprise. Walking back to the ship with the officers, Mark felt a resurgence of the anxiety he'd experienced earlier. With the police at his side, felt a fragile sense of security, but it did little to quell the dread that clung to him. The police began their investigation with a newfound caution, treating the ship as a potential crime scene. They cordoned off the area and started documenting everything. As Mark watched, his fear validated as the officers transformed from skeptics to investigators, now fully engrossed in unrawing the mystery of the ship. The police moved cautiously through the cabin, examining the eerie arrangement of skeletons and the dark stains on the floor and walls. They spoke in hushed, serious tones, discussing the possible scenarios that could have led to such a scene. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with the unsaid. They took photographs from every angle, carefully avoiding any disturbance to the scene. The police officers huddled together, discussing their findings in low tones. Mark, overhearing fragments of their conversation, sensed their frustration. The revelation that the blood and skeletons were not real, only deep in the enigma. The investigators were baffled by the purpose of such a setup. Mark remembered Tyler's disbelief when he first saw the photo of the ship and decided to call him for more information. And he foresaw the rash ewer. Tyler's response only deepened the mystery. He confirmed that the boat had not been there during his visit to the glacier a year ago. This new piece of information intrigued the police, adding another layer to the puzzle. The fact that the ship had appeared within such a short time frame without anyone noticing seemed almost impossible possible. The investigation eventually hit a dead end. The evidence gathered from the ship provided no clear answers about how or why it appeared on the glacier. The ship, with its fabricated horrors, remained an enigma, its origins and purpose shrouded in mystery. The investigation by the police yielded no fruitful leads. They scoured their databases and reached out to other departments, but nothing came up that could explain the presence of the ship or its bizarre contents. Mark riled with the surreal nature of the entire incident. Part of him felt foolish for being so scared, while another part was beheard by the unexplained nature of what he had found. As Mark and the police left the scene, the mystery of the ship remained intact, its secrets locked away in the frozen depths of the glacier. When several days after the investigation stalled, a new lead surfaced. A local amateur filmmaker contacted the authorities after hearing about the mysterious boat. Mark, present at the police station, listened intently as the filmmaker spoke. He claimed to have crucial information about the vessel, explaining that he recognized the ship from the noose. His knowledge seemed to be the missing piece in the perplexing puzzle that had baffled everyone involved. But the filmmaker revealed that the boat was used as a prop in a low-budget film he had been working on. Mark's eyebrows raised in surprise as he absorbed this information. The filmmaker described how they had chosen the ship for its striking appearance and isolated location, ideal for their project's theme. This revelation shed new light on the bizarre scene Mark had encountered, transforming the narrative from one of horror to one of artistic endeavor. So with the filmmaker's explanation, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The stage skeletons and an artificial blood were part of the movie set, not remnants of a real tragedy. Mark felt a sense of relief wash over him as he understood the true nature of what he had found. The police officers too seemed relieved that the case was taking a turn away from the sinister implications they had feared. The boat, once a central piece in their film, had become a casualty of these circumstances. Left behind as the crew retreated from the harsh Alaskan environment. The intention to return for the boat was clear, but various logistical complications had prevented it. The filmmaker expressed his regret over leaving the set intact, acknowledging that it had been a difficult decision. With the mystery solved, Mark felt a bizarre cocktail of emotions. The fear and anxiety he had experienced were now replaced with a sense of amusement and disbelief. He couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. What he had believed to be a scene of horror was nothing more than an abandoned movie set, a fact that seemed almost too strange to be true. In the aftermath, Mark found himself reflecting on the experience. He thought about how easily reality could be mistaken for fiction and vice versa. The incident had been a bit of a reminder of life's unpredictability and the thin line between imagination and reality. As he left the police station, Mark looked back one last time, his mind filled with thoughts about the strange and unexpected turns life could take.